Welcome back, everyone. We all experience loss at some point, right? And it's during those times when, we naturally kind of turn to something for comfort, for meaning, and for a lot of people, that's faith. So today we're going to do a deep dive.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to take a deep dive into the words of Pastor Jeong from LAUMC. Specifically, we're going to be looking at some excerpts from one of his recent weekly messages.
Sounds good.
So Pastor Jeong offers just a really unique perspective on this whole idea of navigating grief, through this pastoral lens.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what I find really fascinating about his approach is how he positions himself, in this whole topic, of grief. He doesn't come across as someone who has all the answers.
Right, right.
But rather, as a companion, as someone who's walking alongside those who are grieving.
Yeah, like a guide, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And he uses this really powerful analogy. I think it's in the beginning of his message. He compares himself to the donkey
Okay.
in the story of the Good Samaritan. Oh, wow. I love that.
Right.
Yeah.
It's such a vivid picture, of carrying someone through their pain, literally carrying them.
Yeah. It's like it's a powerful image of support.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But, it also acknowledges, I think, the weight of that responsibility.
Yeah.
The pastor, the one who's walking alongside the griever.
Right. Right.
It's a heavy burden, and Pastor Jeong actually describes it as both sacred and heartbreaking.
Yeah, you can definitely sense that.
Yeah.
When you listen to him speak, like he doesn't shy away from the raw emotions that are involved. He really emphasizes that grief is a journey, not a destination.
Yeah.
And he finds a lot of comfort and meaning in Scripture, especially that passage in Lamentations.
Yeah, chapter 3,
Yeah.
verses 22 and 23.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
It's talking about God's enduring compassion.
Yes, yes. Which is such a beautiful reminder, right? That even in the deepest, darkest moments of despair,
Yeah.
God's mercies are new every morning.
Yeah.
It's a new day.
Yeah. And it really ties into, this idea that grief can actually be transformative, right?
Yeah.
It's not just something that we go through and come out the other side the same.
Right.
It changes us.
Yeah.
And Pastor Jeong actually quotes the poet Gwen Flowers, who says that grief is not a task to complete, but a new way of seeing,
I like that.
a new definition of self.
Wow. Yeah, that quote really, it really struck me, it really resonated with me, because it makes you think about how, how loss forces us to kind of confront who we are without that person or without that dream.
Yeah, it shakes us, right? It shakes our foundations. It challenges our beliefs.
Yeah, it does. And it can be really, really hard,
Absolutely.
And that brings us to, I think, another really important point that Pastor Jeong makes, and that is the inseparability of love and grief.
Yeah.
They go hand in hand.
They're two sides of the same coin. And he quotes Mitchell and Anderson, I think, in his message, who say that there is no love without loss.
Right.
And where there is loss, there is grief.
It's powerful.
Yeah.
I never really thought about it that way before,
Yeah.
but it's true. Grief is it's a testament to love, I think.
Yeah.
It shows us, the depth of our connection to that person, to that thing.
And the impact that they had, on our lives.
Yeah, exactly. And it broadens, I think, our understanding of grief beyond just, the death of a loved one. We can grieve, the loss of a relationship,
Right.
the loss of a dream, the loss of a job,
Yeah.
even the loss of just a phase of life,
Yeah.
Like things change.
Absolutely. Mourning then becomes almost like this sacred act of, honoring what was cherished,
Right.
whatever it was.
Yeah. And how we mourn, how we process that grief, it's so personal. It's different for everyone. And Pastor Jeong really emphasizes this. There's no right or wrong way to grieve.
Absolutely.
There's no timeline.
Right.
He even references, the Elizabeth Kubler-Ross stages of grief, which, a lot of people are familiar with.
Right. Denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance.
Yeah, all of that.
Yeah.
But he cautions against viewing those stages as like a rigid checklist.
Right.
Like you have to go through them in order.
It's not linear. Right. Healing it's fluid.
Yeah.
And it's, unique to each individual.
Yeah. Some people might, experience all of those stages, and others might only experience a few.
Right.
The order might vary. And some people might actually get stuck, in a particular stage for a while.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
That's perfectly normal.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's comforting to know that, that there's no one-size-fits-all approach to grief.
Right.
Like, you don't have to compare your grief journey to anyone else's.
Absolutely.
What works for someone else might not work for you,
Right.
and that's okay.
Yeah. And he brings in a story, he actually brings in the story of, Jesus weeping at Lazarus's tomb,
Oh, yeah.
which I think it's so powerful, right? Because even Jesus in his divinity
Right.
experienced the depths of human sorrow.
Yeah, you wasn't immune to it.
Right.
Yeah. That story really struck me because it reminds us that, grief is a universal human experience.
Yeah.
We're not alone in it.
We're not alone.
And that, I think, leads us to another important aspect of healing, and that is the power of rituals
Yes.
and community.
Yes. Community.
Pastor Jeong talks about, storytelling, memorials, prayer.
Shared experiences.
Yeah. Yeah, these shared experiences, they can really help us to process loss,
Right.
to find solace in the midst of that pain.
And especially within, a supportive community.
Yeah. It's about creating a space
Yes.
where people can, come together,
Hmm.
share their memories,
Yeah.
support each other. It's not about finding closure, he says,
Right.
but learning to live anew, carrying the experience with us.
Yeah. And ultimately, he leaves us with this message of hope,
Yeah.
drawing from Psalm 34, that assures us that, that God is present in our pain and that he walks with us towards
Right.
healing
Towards healing.
and hope
And hope.
and ultimately transformation.
Yeah. And this deep dive into Pastor Jones' words, it's been incredibly insightful,
Yeah.
I think.
I think so too.
And it raises an important question, if grief is indeed a transformation, like Pastor Jones says,
Right.
how might it be shaping your understanding of yourself
Yeah.
and the world?
That's a really good question.
Something to think about.
Yeah.
It's something to reflect on. And so, we encourage you to do that, to reflect on your own experiences with grief and how those experiences have shaped your journey.
Yeah.
And remember,
You're not alone.
you're not alone.
We're all in this together.
Yeah. That's it for this deep dive. See you next time.
See ya.